People always described my mother the same way. Fair, honest, impossible to accuse of favoritism. Professor Victoria Bennett had spent years building that reputation as the dean of Ashcroft University's School of Medicine. Every student admired her integrity. Every teacher respected her decisions. Everyone believed she would rather sacrifice her own happiness than give her daughter even the smallest advantage. Unfortunately, I was that daughter. My name was Natalie Bennett, and the day my life ended began with the university's annual blood donation campaign. I had suffered from severe aplastic anemia since I was a little girl. Every specialist I had ever seen repeated the same warning. Under no circumstances should I donate blood without strict medical supervision because even a moderate blood loss could become life-threatening. My mother knew this better than anyone. She had attended every appointment, memorized every lab result, and stayed awake countless nights watching over me whenever my condition became unstable. Yet on that morning, none of those memories seemed to matter. Students gathered outside the mobile donation clinic while volunteers handed out flyers praising generosity and civic responsibility. My mother stood proudly beside the organizers, greeting everyone with her usual calm smile. The moment she noticed me slowing down near the entrance, her expression changed. "Natalie," she said quietly, "don't disappoint me today." I held out the medical certificate my hematologist had signed only 2 days earlier. "Mom, I can't participate." My doctor renewed my exemption. She barely looked at the paper before pushing it back toward me. "If the dean's own daughter refuses to donate, people will think I'm giving you special treatment." "They'll think you're protecting your sick child," I answered. "No," she replied coldly. "They'll think I'm abusing my authority." Around us, students had already begun whispering. "That's Professor Bennett's daughter. I heard she always gets exceptions. Let's see if she skips this too." Their comments only seemed to strengthen Mother's determination. She folded her arms across her chest. "You'll donate like everyone else." My throat tightened. "You know what could happen. I know you're capable of doing the right thing." There was no warmth left in her voice. Only authority. Only the dean speaking instead of the mother who used to stay beside my hospital bed all night. Feeling every pair of eyes on me, I finally climbed into the donation bus. Inside, a young nurse greeted me with a polite smile that quickly faded after reading my student ID. Her badge identified her as Rachel Morgan. "So you're the dean's daughter," she said. "I've heard plenty about you." She wrapped the elastic band around my arm so tightly that my fingers immediately tingled. I handed her my medical certificate. "I have severe aplastic anemia. My doctor says I'm not allowed to donate blood." Rachel glanced at the document for less than a second before placing it aside. "Students invent excuses every year. This isn't an excuse. You look healthy enough to me." I instinctively pulled my arm back. "Please listen. I really can't do this." Before Rachel could answer, my mother stepped inside after hearing our conversation. "Is there a problem?" Rachel sighed dramatically. "Professor Bennett, your daughter insists she's too weak to donate." Mother's face darkened. "Natalie, stop making excuses." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Mom, you know I'm sick. Everyone here is donating 400 milliliters. You will too." Rachel immediately prepared the equipment. The cold disinfectant touched my skin before the needle slid into my vein. Dark blood slowly filled the tube. At first I tried to stay calm. I focused on breathing slowly. Maybe if they stopped early, I'd be all right. But after only a short time, my vision began to blur. My ears rang loudly, drowning out the conversations around me. I raised my free hand. "Something's wrong." Rachel didn't even look at me. "We've barely started." My heartbeat accelerated painfully. "I'm getting dizzy." She rolled her eyes. "Every blood drive has someone pretending to faint." "I'm not pretending." "Sure you aren't." My breathing became shallow. Sweat covered my forehead despite the cool air inside the bus. I reached toward the tubing, hoping to stop the donation myself. Rachel immediately grabbed my wrist and forced it back down. "What do you think you're doing? Please, stop. We've only collected 100 milliliters. I can't keep going." "You can." Then she leaned closer and whispered so only I could hear. "Being the dean's daughter doesn't make you special." Outside the windows, students continued watching. One boy laughed quietly. "She's making a scene already." Another shrugged. "It's just blood." If only they knew that my body couldn't replace blood the way theirs could. Every drop leaving my veins felt like another piece of my strength disappearing forever. Mother sighed loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Natalie, you've embarrassed me enough today." My heartbeat became completely irregular. Each pulse slammed painfully against my ribs. Dark spots spread across my vision. Rachel looked toward my mother. "Should I continue?" Mother answered without even looking at me. "Finish the donation." I couldn't believe those words. The same woman who had once memorized every medicine I needed was now ordering them to ignore the illness she understood better than anyone else. She had sacrificed my scholarships before because she didn't want people accusing her of favoritism. She had given my research opportunities to other students for exactly the same reason. Every time she apologized afterward, explaining that protecting her reputation for fairness was necessary. Every time I forgave her because I believed she still loved me. But lying there with blood steadily leaving my body, I began wondering whether her reputation had become more important than I was. Rachel replaced the first collection bag with another and smiled sarcastically. "See? You're still alive." My lips had already gone pale. My fingers felt numb. I could barely hear anything except the violent pounding inside my chest. The room spun around me, growing darker with every passing second, until I realized I was losing the strength to even keep my eyes open. The voices around me became distant, as if everyone had suddenly moved to the other end of a long tunnel. I tried blinking, hoping the darkness clouding my vision would disappear, but everything only became blurrier. My fingers had completely lost sensation, and my breathing felt painfully shallow. Every inhale burned my chest. "Rachel, please." I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. "I can't breathe." The nurse sighed impatiently without slowing the flow of blood. "You're breathing well enough to complain." Several students standing nearby chuckled. One girl folded her arms and shook her head. "She's making such a huge performance." "Exactly," another student agreed. "I've donated every year. It's not even that painful." None of them knew that my body wasn't fighting pain. It was fighting to survive. My mother remained standing beside the chair with the same calm expression she wore during faculty meetings. "Natalie," she said firmly, "stop humiliating yourself." I slowly turned my head toward her. I wanted to remind her of all the nights she had held my hand while doctors searched for compatible blood transfusions. I wanted to remind her of the notebooks filled with meal plans she had carefully written to help increase my hemoglobin. I wanted to ask when that loving mother had disappeared. Instead, only a weak whisper escaped my lips. "Mom." She looked away before I could finish. Rachel checked the collection bag. Only halfway there. My heart skipped another beat. Then another. My vision narrowed until only small circles of light remained. Instinctively, I reached toward the needle again. Rachel slapped my hand away. "Will you stop moving?" The needle shifted painfully inside my arm. Warm blood trickled beneath the adhesive tape. "Oops," Rachel muttered with obvious annoyance. She pulled the needle out so roughly that fresh blood immediately stained my sleeve. Before I could react, she searched for another vein. "Hold still." The needle pierced my arm again. Sharp pain shot through my shoulder. She frowned. "Missed it." Without the slightest apology, she withdrew it and stabbed my arm again. Then again. By the fourth attempt, my forearm was already covered in dark bruises. "There we go," she said with satisfaction after finally finding a vein. "You really make everything more difficult than it has to be." I could no longer feel the individual stabs. My entire body had become strangely numb. My heartbeat was no longer pounding. Instead, it fluttered weakly, like it was struggling to remember how to keep going. "Professor Bennett," Rachel said while replacing another blood bag, "your daughter has been complaining since the very beginning. The other students donated without causing any trouble." Mother sighed. "She's always been overly sensitive." Those words hurt far more than the needles. Ever since entering Ashcroft University, I had forced myself to accept every unfair decision she made. When I ranked first for the National Academic Excellence Scholarship, she quietly awarded it to the second-place student because people might accuse her of favoring her daughter. When I earned the opportunity to represent the university at an international medical conference, she reassigned my place to another student using exactly the same explanation. "You have to understand my position, Natalie. If I don't avoid even the appearance of favoritism, everything I've worked for will be questioned." Every single time, I swallowed my disappointment because I believed she was trying to protect something bigger than both of us. But now, she wasn't protecting fairness anymore. She was sacrificing me to preserve her image. The room spun violently. My ears rang louder than ever. I couldn't even hear my own heartbeat anymore. I gasped desperately for air, but every breath seemed smaller than the last. Rachel glanced down at me. "Honestly, you're lucky to have such an amazing mother." She shook her head dramatically. "If my mother were a university dean, I'd be grateful instead of acting spoiled." Several students immediately nodded in agreement. "Professor Bennett is one of the fairest people on campus." Exactly. If even she says her daughter is exaggerating, then she probably is. Their words floated around me like distant echoes. None of them questioned why someone with an official medical exemption had been forced into the donation chair. None of them wondered why my skin had already turned almost white. They simply believed the respected dean over the sick girl lying beneath a blood collection tube. My vision faded even further. I couldn't tell whether my eyes were open anymore. Suddenly, my body gave out completely. Every muscle relaxed at once. The world tilted sideways as I slipped from the chair and crashed heavily onto the floor. The impact pulled the tubing loose, sending blood splattering across the white tiles. Gasps filled the mobile clinic. Rachel immediately stepped backward. Instead of checking my pulse, she frowned angrily at the spilled blood. "Look what you've done," she snapped. "Do you know how much blood you've just wasted?" She bent down, grabbed my shoulder, and shook me roughly. "Get up." My body didn't respond. She shoved me harder. "Stop pretending." Still nothing. Rachel bit her lip before suddenly stumbling backward on purpose. She landed dramatically against one of the cabinets, knocking the blood bag onto the floor. "Professor Bennett," she cried, her eyes instantly filling with tears. I was only trying to help her, and she pushed me. The students immediately rushed toward Rachel instead of me. "Are you all right? Did she really push you?" Rachel sniffled pitifully. I tried being patient, but she kept threatening me. She even said that because she's the dean's daughter, she could have me fired whenever she wanted. My mind screamed that she was lying. I had never said anything remotely close to that. But no sound left my lips. I simply lay motionless on the cold floor while everyone crowded around the nurse instead of the girl who had just collapsed. My mother hurried to Rachel's side and gently helped her stand. "Don't worry," she said softly. "As long as I'm here, no one will bully you." Then she turned toward me. The disappointment in her eyes had transformed into disgust. "Natalie Bennett," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I never imagined you would use our family's name to threaten innocent people." She looked around at the students watching in silence. Since she insists on pretending to faint just to avoid donating blood, we'll finish what she started. Rachel, continue the donation. Let's see how long she keeps this childish act going. She never waited for anyone to question her decision. The authority in her voice was enough to silence the entire bus. Rachel wiped the fake tears from her cheeks, nodded obediently, and picked the needle up again. If Professor Bennett says to continue, then I suppose we have no choice. She knelt beside my motionless body and grabbed my arm roughly. Natalie, stop wasting everyone's time. When I didn't react, she forced my sleeve higher and searched for another vein. One of the volunteers hesitated. Shouldn't someone call an ambulance first? Rachel laughed dismissively. Ambulance? She's pretending. Haven't you ever seen someone fake fainting? Several students immediately agreed. She's obviously acting. Professor Bennett knows her own daughter. If she says Natalie is pretending, then she must be. Those words spread through the crowd like wildfire. Within seconds, everyone had accepted them as the truth. Rachel pressed the needle into my arm again. Blood slowly flowed through the tubing. There, she muttered. Let's finish this. I could no longer feel the pain. I could no longer feel anything at all. The strange pressure crushing my chest had disappeared, replaced by an overwhelming emptiness. Somewhere far away I heard someone asking whether my lips looked unusually blue. Another student answered before anyone else could. She's probably doing that on purpose too. My mother remained perfectly calm. Natalie has always been dramatic. Don't let her delay everyone else's donation. The line outside the bus continued moving. Student after student stepped forward, donated their blood, accepted a snack and a bottle of juice, then walked away while occasionally glancing toward the girl lying on the floor. Most of them looked annoyed rather than concerned. Rachel kept replacing collection bags until the full 400 milliliters had finally been drawn. Only then did she remove the needle. She nudged my shoulder with the tip of her shoe. You can stop now. Silence. She sighed loudly. Honestly, I've never met anyone so desperate for attention. 2 male volunteers entered the bus to help clean the floor. Rachel pointed toward my body. Can you carry her outside? She'll only scare the next students if she keeps lying here. Neither of them argued. One lifted my shoulders while the other grabbed my legs. My head hung limply backward as they carried me down the bus steps and laid me on the concrete beside the parking area. The afternoon sun had become unbearably hot. Heat radiated from the pavement beneath me. Someone nearby hesitated. Shouldn't we at least move her into the shade? Rachel shook her head immediately. Leave her there. She smiled sarcastically. Once she realizes no one's paying attention anymore, she'll magically recover. The volunteers returned inside without another word. Students continued passing by. Some stared. Others whispered. A few even laughed quietly. She's really committed to the act. Imagine embarrassing your own mother like that. Poor Professor Bennett. Nobody bothered checking whether I was still breathing. Time passed slowly. The blood drive continued exactly as planned. Laughter, conversations, and cheerful announcements echoed across campus while my body remained motionless beneath the scorching sunlight. Nearly 2 hours later the event finally ended. Students stretched their sore arms and prepared to leave. One freshman paused after noticing me still lying exactly where I'd been left. She's been there this whole time. His friend looked uncomfortable. Maybe someone should check on her. Before either of them could move, Rachel walked past carrying the donation records. She overheard their conversation and immediately rolled her eyes. Don't fall for it. The boys looked uncertain. Rachel lowered her voice as though sharing an important secret. People like her love manipulating others. If you go near her, she'll probably accuse you of hurting her and demand compensation. The students instantly stepped back. Seriously? I've seen it before, Rachel replied confidently. She hides behind her mother's position whenever things don't go her way. Another student who had witnessed the earlier argument nodded. She acted like she deserved special treatment all morning. Exactly, Rachel answered. Professor Bennett has spent years teaching fairness, and this is how her daughter repays her. Satisfied that no one would approach me, Rachel continued walking toward the administration building. Inside the dean's office, she handed my mother the donation reports with a polite smile. Everything went smoothly in the end. Mother reviewed the paperwork before signing the final page. Her eyes paused briefly when she saw my name listed among the successful donors. Where's Natalie? Rachel lowered her gaze, pretending to hesitate. I tried helping her earlier, but she refused to get up. What did she say? Rachel sighed dramatically. She said she would stay outside until you personally apologized for embarrassing her. Mother's expression immediately darkened. She's becoming impossible. Rachel nodded sympathetically. I thought maybe you could comfort her just this once. Mother slammed the file shut. No. Her voice was colder than ever. I've indulged her for far too long already. If I give in today, she'll only become even more unreasonable. Rachel smiled faintly, hiding her satisfaction. Then, should we just leave her there? Mother didn't hesitate. If she wants to lie on the ground throwing a tantrum, let her stay there until she comes to her senses. Outside, the afternoon temperature continued rising. The campus gradually emptied as students escaped into air-conditioned buildings. My body remained alone beneath the blazing sun, completely still, while somewhere deep inside, something impossible was beginning to happen.